Oh no! Is my audio live? Okay, you guys can hear me, but I have momentarily become a no signal image. Woo! In a gear. Well, it does sound quite technical. I'm no longer in a gear, but I am in a no signal message. We are momentarily fixing the camera image. Apparently cables were not plugged in as necessary or something along those lines.
Postal Service.
We will blame the U.S. Postal Service because they messed up for real bad. For real bad? That's a grammatically correct English sentence. But don't worry. We are going to get behind the screens running very soon.
Behind the screens right now.
I know, this is what it truly... I'm like making hand gestures and you guys can't see them because that's apparently the only way I know how to communicate. So, hello everyone. There's my very shapely legs. Oh, blue hair.
And now we've got a microphone. It's fine.
That's okay. That's okay. I actually probably need to get one of these mic stands because it looks real handy. Not this one, different one.
Not this one. The other one's better.
Okay, Anna has strong opinions about things.
I have a super inexpensive one, and it's way better.
I like the sound of that.
Right?
Yes, my hair is a new color for those of you who have seen me recently this week. It's still purple. I swear to God, my hair is purple, but it will not look like that on any camera that I have ever tried, except my phone. My phone camera will show it as pink in certain lighting. Who knows? But thank you for that host, Grimlost. So yes, I reapplied my hair color for anyone who is wondering why it has appeared to change color magically. So hello, welcome in. For those of you who are new here, you are watching GeekSpaceTV. We had life get in the way of making things happen, so thank you for bearing with us. Anna was like, we are 3 minutes late and it's a tragedy. This woman managed to get this stream started in 10 minutes.
The U.S. Postal Service lost my migraine meds.
Yeah, like that's fucking bullshit.
And I'm leaving in like 2 days for my wedding. Kinda need my migraine meds. I'm almost entirely
no way
out.
That would be stressful.
So I had to stop on the way in. I didn't think that it would take me a half an hour, and it did. So sorry, working on it. Also working on getting Mixer chat. If there is anyone in our Mixer chat that isn't a troll, then we're coming for you. We're coming for you, and if you are a troll, well, I'm coming for you too. But I'm coming with the band hammer. It's
but
fine.
in a very different way.
It's fine.
In a very different way.
Why do we not have chat? And why is it talking? It's not talking. That's just me hearing myself. It's fine.
It's not talking.
There are 2 people watching.
So hello,
Where's
and
the chat?
I think it's that button. Yeah.
That's weird. Why is it? Why? Okay. All right. It's fine. It's fine.
Hello, you were watching GeekSpaceTV. We are a non-profit streaming studio in the Seattle area. Our mission and our true existence, our raison d'être, as some might say, is to promote and increase and improve diversity and inclusion. That was the word I was looking for. My brain just farted for a moment. Dude, have you ever heard that phrase, brain fart?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Just want to make sure that's not just me making shit up. Diversity and inclusion within gaming and geek spaces, and we are delighted to be here today with Behind the Screens, which, if you don't know what Behind the Screens is, this is a show where we talk about how to become a better game master, but also we can talk about how to become a better, basically any game that has someone functionally leading the game, but they might be referred to by a different name. I actually really like that there's a trend in a lot of indie RPGs to not name them Game Master, or Master of any kind. Some of them are like MC, or Facilitator, or Storyteller. I think a lot of those are, in many ways, more descriptive of how it is at least I try and play, so they might help you think about it as a slightly different way. But that's me getting on a personal tangent. So yeah, we're gonna talk about some of these things. Misaki, Is that what I should read that one? Can I read it? I can read it. Misaki, a donation equal to my current SR in Overwatch because I hit Masters! Booey! Boy, that was boy, not boo. I actually wasn't sure what letter the O's were gonna end on, and I was like, is the internet gonna get me to say the word boob? Because that seemed highly probable. Also, congratulations on hitting Master level in Overwatch. I have not ranked in a long time. I made the mistake once of telling my students that I played Overwatch, and then I just had a bunch of children coming up to me, and they're like, you play Overwatch? I was like, yes. I recognize you think adults are people who get put in a closet and turned off at night, but that is not actually true. So thank you so much, Misaki. Thank you, thank you. That leads me quite nicely into my next segment, which is how can you support GeekSpaceTV? There are many ways to do so. You can do one which you're already doing, which is being here, hanging out, and watching the stream. You can also join us for other shows that we do here. You can share it out by hosting it on your own Twitch channel, because you have one if you are in chat and you are using a name. You can also share it in other various social medias that you use using the fun word-of-mouth tactic, such as writing it in the sky. That seems accurate. And also, if you are able to do so, we do truly appreciate financial support that can come through direct donations over on PayPal, or you can also support us regularly once a month over on Patreon. Truly thank you to those of you who have upped your Patreon pledge amount, especially for this month. It is really wonderful, all of the help, and thank you to everyone who joined us this Saturday when we did a fundraiser. And you helped us get to our second goal, which really improves the security of our ability to complete Season 3 of our shows here on GeekSpaceTV, which includes The Leviathan Distant Stars, which I'm personally a little biased about. Hello, look at you quick change! As well as Eat, Pray, Kill, which is our Friday night show using a Powered by the Apocalypse hack called Broken Worlds, created by the guy who created Kill 6 Billion Demons. So yeah, what a nice tank top, Anna. Where's that from?
So what happened is we were supposed to give away like a ton of t-shirts and tank tops during the fundraiser, but I was so busy that I didn't have time to run those giveaways. So we only gave away a couple. And I thought about it, and I feel like, you know, we try and push for all types of diversity on the geek space, as we do the best job that we can, and we're constantly working to improve. But one way that we have it down is LGBTQ alphabet soup pride.
Pretty solid on that.
And we are going into June, which is Pride Month. We are unfortunately going to be down a couple of shows for most of June. In fact, this is the last behind the screens until the last week of June, I think.
I think so, yeah, because I get back on a Wednesday.
And with my wedding, I don't have time to plan, like, teleconferencing that, and you're going to be on actual vacation, which is something we would like to encourage.
Parts of it will definitely be an actual vacation.
Also, I think Steph would kill me if I asked you to work while you were on vacation. So,
she would.
So what I figured we would do, at least to kind of like overcome that a little bit, is every episode of an RPG show that we are able to do. This doesn't count Aloft, because that's somebody else's show. We're just providing a space and a channel for it. But any of our shows, so Eat, Pray, Kill, Leviathan, or whatever we put in Leviathan's spot for the 2 weeks that I'm here and you're not, we will give away a shirt during the break. And that is shirt or tank top. It's a tank top that I'm wearing right now, which is why I put my hoodie on, because you guys can't handle these guns.
No, keep going.
It's been a really long week, let me tell you. So it can be tank top or t-shirt in men's or excuse me, in women's or unisex. Wait, no, I said that wrong. Men's or unisex, which is women's. Sorry. I'm trying to make a snarky commentary on how unisex is really just men's. But anyway, men's or women's, tank top or t-shirt, Pride logo, like what I'm wearing right now, or regular GeekSpace logo. So you're gonna have in a wide range of sizes. No promises, but I think we can do up to 5X. I'll have to double check that.
Depending on what you
if
go
somebody
through, a
wants
lot of
it.
them can.
It's,
Sometimes it
it's
gives you
Spreadshirt.
like, okay, sometimes they'll be like, you can't get all of the colors, or you can't get all of the,
Yeah.
you can't get all of the.
What's the sleeve on the hoodie? This is the Andromeda Initiative.
My hoodie finally arrived from BioWare, but the other things we ordered have not arrived, so.
Aw.
Yeah.
But at least hoodie. Yeah.
I know, I got the hoodie, which is mostly just a replacement, but it is a size smaller. It fits better.
So yeah, and because it's Spreadshirt, like I can put it on whatever type of shirt. So like if there is an option that goes up to 5X and you need 5X, we will put it on that one.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that's important to me because I have had community members for a very, very long time that are always left out. Teespring hasn't had. I think they do now.
They do now, which
but
is cool because that's why I stuck with them.
When they were partnered with Twitch, they didn't have 5X shirts.
That's yeah.
Designed by Humans doesn't have 5X shirts, or at least didn't. It's been a big deal. So it's one of the reasons that I've gone with Spreadshirt is because they've got a huge variety of stuff that we can put it on. I would even entertain putting it on something other than a shirt, if that's like if somebody wants a dog bandana, like sure. That's as long as it doesn't cost more than a shirt. Then
I
we're
figured
good.
out you can get flags on some things and like tote bags and
true.
stuff, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. So I'm open to that, but the giveaway is supposed to be for tank tops and t-shirts. And we'll do that for every episode of a major show, a tentpole show that we have during the month of June. During the month of June, I think. Which might be tough while I'm away, but maybe we'll do tonight or Friday instead of next Friday. I don't know. Let me figure that one out.
You got this. You can take a moment.
I talked about it on my stream today. I am more stressed out right now, like the last couple of days, than I have been in a very, very long time.
Yeah, is it because this like really sort of high stress event might be happening in like a week and a half?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've never heard anyone get stressed about having a wedding. Ever. No one else does, Anna. This is an entirely unique experience you are having.
Ooh, good call, Evie. Stickers, Pride logo stickers.
That'd be maybe a Patreon thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
Stickers are pretty great.
Remind me later.
Yes. There are
like
good
on
channels.
Discord, because then that's
Discord channels.
Mention it on Discord. I'll get to it when I can get to it.
If you are new here, we do have a Discord. So Discord is a great place to post questions, suggestions, ideas, and things like that. There's a lot of different channels dedicated to a lot of different things. So make sure you join our Discord and connect it with your Twitch if you feel so inclined. And I think.
Okay. I'm going to sneeze.
Things. Yeah, please do. Bless you. Thank you. That was adorable. I think those are probably our main announcements. Besides our regular scheduled programming is happening next week. This week, next week is when our less than regular scheduled programming starts happening. So stay tuned for updates and announcements on what that is going to look like.
Iffy, thank you so much. Iffy is over in Mixer chat doing the solo mod thing, and I really, really appreciate it. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're doing great. You're doing great. Other than that, I think that pretty much covers everything. I've done most of the spieling. So today, when is the start? Does Aloft have an official first day?
It should start on the 11th.
June 11th is the plan?
There are complications behind the scenes that we need to work out. One of the cast members is having a massive allergic reaction to something in the common area of the studio space. I'm almost positive that we know what it is. So it's a matter of sorting that, or if we can't, replacing them. So I haven't had time to really have that conversation yet. So tentative, the 11th is when it's supposed to start.
Generally,
So.
for more specific information or updates, we'll post them either to various social media, Twitter being the main one, and Discord. So stay tuned to those. As soon as we get it officialized, we'll let you know.
Also, tonight is the first full episode of an RPG that we're going to try and put in 360 on Periscope. So, I don't expect that a lot of you are going to watch the whole show there. You'll probably still want to tune into the Twitch channel or Mixer, maybe. But it's definitely a cool thing to check out if you haven't seen 360 video before. So.
And the goal is eventually that those will go up as VODs on YouTube.
Yeah.
So that you will be able to watch them in your own time.
Yeah.
So other reminders, and Krillin gave a great example of this, which is that if you would like to make sure we see something, a question that you have specifically in chat, using the word question, Anna or Lauren will highlight it for us so we will be able to see it. And I think Krellin's question is one that we need to address other things before we address that specific question.
Yes.
So, this week on Behind the Screens, there's a couple of different things that I want to do. The main one that I want to do, which you may or may not enjoy, is
eat cookies.
I have already eaten my one allotted cookie for this show before the show started, so I'm going to eventually puppy dog eyes you into making popcorn.
No, I will totally do that as soon as we're done the show, I think, after the show. If you're ready.
But that's not during. Fine.
I'm sorry, because I've got to clean out the popcorn
know.
machine unless you want stale popcorn mixed in with your fresh popcorn. And in order to do that, I have to empty the compost bin so that I have somewhere to put the old...
I know, I'm getting rationed on cookies. It's alright, Steph was trying to, ration me for cake yesterday, and I was just like, I had it for breakfast, and this is 12 hours later when I had my lunch. I have a problem, guys. It's called sweet things.
Yeah.
Oh,
goodness. Okay, so.
One of the things that I want to talk about this week is your most recent GMing experience. Meaning that I would like us do a little bit of a debrief on Spikadelics, specifically that happened during the fundraiser, because I think that's a really good example. It's also fresh in our minds. We can talk about some of the process behind it, some of your thoughts and feelings.
Also, the only time you and I have played an RPG together where one of us has been the GM.
That is also true, because we've done RPGs together, but we have both been players in them.
Yep.
And so this would be also an opportunity for me to describe, kind of give you some perspective on what it was like being a player, and you can talk about your perspective on being a GM. So that's one of the things that we're going to do is debrief. That was a show you can, I think, probably scrub through and find it on the VODs. If you are interested then in watching it, it was part of our fundraiser. Then if we have time, we'll probably go into a little bit on one of the things that I know you did a whole bunch of during Spikadelics, which is generating content on the fly, or improv in RPGs.
Yeah.
It was, as Crowlin said, it was a good show. So how about start with fill in those who may not know. What is Spikadelics?
Well, I was going to say that first maybe we should really quickly answer in broad terms Krellin's question and then dive into the content. Overall, this show, because it has been announced that I am probably not doing a D&D show after all, I am probably doing a Star Trek show. The content of this show is going to change a little bit, but not a lot. We're still going to work on, I believe, we haven't talked enough about this, but my intent at least is we will still keep building that D&D 5th edition world because it's awesome and I love it. And eventually we will use it, whether it's in a season break show or a full season show. We will end up using it at some point. It's D&D 5th edition. It's I love D&D. So we'll get there. We're still going to work on that. It'll be very, very useful to use in examples, in exercises, in building things and creating things. But we will also cover some content that is Star Trek show specific as that show starts to firm up a bit more. So there's the answer to that. Yes, we're going to do all the things.
Also, I've never taught in an academy or Starfleet, so even though I am a teacher, I don't think it's going to be super relevant.
My high school, I went to a semi-private high school. That's a thing. And the administration called it the academy. The academy.
That sounds pretentious.
Unnecessarily, yeah.
That being said, I went
go.
to Sir William Borlase' grammar school.
Excellent. So now Spikadelic.
Spikadelic.
What was
so the first question is, what is Spikadelic?
Spikadelic is absurd. It's somewhere between Austin Powers meets Get Smart meets the Avengers, not the superheroes, the old British TV show, meets something that is much more culturally aware and modern.
So when you were originally, so this was...
It is puns and innuendo and super spies in 1965.
Okay. So this isn't the first time you've run Spikadelic. This is the second time you have run it.
Yes.
And when you first came up with the idea of Spikadelic, what sort of, what was your pitch that you gave to your players?
Then it was more of an Austin Powers inspired RPG. And then I watched a bunch of Get Smart, and I watched some Austin Powers, and I was like, no, it's a lot more Get Smart than it is Austin Powers, because Austin Powers doesn't give you innuendo. They beat you over the head with it.
Yes, they do.
In more often in such ways that it isn't really innuendo anymore, whereas I feel like we heavily try and stay in the innuendo area.
Some of us do.
Some of us do, yeah. But yeah, that was the main pitch, was super spies, Austin Powers style, where it's going to be campy and silly and fun, but still dramatic in a silly way.
And so what were some of the conversations that you had with the players before that first episode?
Very, very few, because much like this one, it was kind of thrown together as an almost last minute thing, being like, I love this idea, you love this idea, you love this idea, and you two love this idea, let's do this.
Okay.
So even then, there wasn't a lot of prep conversation. When we did the first one, we tried using the Agency RPG, which is
you have told me you think this is a bad system. Why?
It's not a system. It's the Agency is a mechanic that they fleshed out only enough to fill an entire pamphlet and call it an RPG. And so I went to school for game design, and one of the first things that we learn is the difference between a full game idea and a mechanic idea. And this is a mechanic idea that somebody tried to build into a game. And it's a cool mechanic idea. I can't even remember what it was because we don't really use it anymore. But it was a cool mechanic idea and not anything else. The character building is lacking. Everything except that one idea is lacking. So, no, I'm really not a fan of it.
That's totally reasonable. So you mentioned that you had this idea, right? And it's all of these kind of older spy shows, right? Get Smart, The Agency, Austin Powers, and they rely very heavily on misogynistic tropes of the 1960s. Where and when did you end up with the conversation that was not going to be the reality in your world?
There was a conversation I was supposed to have about that?
No, when did that decision happen?
Oh, Okay,
Or how did that
sorry.
come
So
about?
say that again
So
in
the
short.
the
I was
core of like a
running
lot of
straight.
these shows is either they are from the 60s and therefore are inherently sexist, or and racist
Got it,
and
yeah.
other problems, or they're based on that and they carry, like Austin Powers, they carry a lot of those things. When and how did you make the decision that that wasn't going to be part of this world, and then how did you give that information to your players?
When I guess that was part of the initial pitch, such as it were, is it's like, but without all of the racism and sexism and stuff. Particularly, I think that became strong in my mind after watching Austin Powers again and being like, wow, ooh, oh wow, no, I haven't seen this since I was high school. This is oh dear, and there are still. I still enjoy the movie, but it is incredibly problematic. So, it's a part of that, and it's just a part of what we do here is being aware of that stuff. And the same thing with A Manner of Speaking. We had a conversation at one point about being like, is this an issue we want to tackle? No, we want to have fun. Okay, great, let's move on.
Yeah,
but in particular with Spikadelic, we were going into this being like, no, we want this to be fun. And we wrote it in live on the show of why it's, it's not an issue, but we definitely, it wasn't even really a conversation. It was very much that doesn't fit into the design aesthetic of the show to have these issues that we have to deal with, so let's not do it. Let's just say, no, we have equality in 1965. Actual equality.
So, when you sat down at the table for the first episode of Spikadelic, what did you as a GM come with? Like, what were you like, this is what I have prepared, and like, what did your end look like? And I know you said it was
for
very
the first
off the cuff,
episode.
yeah, and kind of thrown together, but like, what did you thought about in terms of the world or your story for that episode?
I had a basic plot line. I had them each make characters using the agency system, and 2 of them wanted to be drivers, so that made it easy for me to be like, okay, we're going to have this plot line where they need to stop the nefarious villain, and there's a mole, they're going to go to a racetrack and have to make contact with that mole and try and extract them, and I'll figure the rest out later. And then I didn't have time. So I had that much planned out. Beyond that, I had note cards with a bunch of the acronyms, and that's something that I really wish that I had this past episode, because it was really, really helpful, even as I improvised a lot of it. It was really helpful to have the note cards and be like, this is the agency, this is Pfister, this is what Pfister stands for, all on one card. This is the agency they're working for, this is what that stands for. Like, each of them, I knew what agency, the agency's acronyms were, and had it easily referenceable. Totally a word.
Yeah, it's legit. It is
Yeah,
now.
it is now.
I have not watched. I've seen parts of the first episode, but I have not sat down and watched it all the way through. A lot of these questions, though, are probably ones that I'd still be asking you, but if I had watched it, because I'm kind of pulling out what your experience has been in different GMing settings.
Put that somewhere that I can see it in case somebody notifies me again of something. So
that's what you came with in terms of plot wise. You had kind of, you had your setup, and then you had your first location. In terms of world, how much did you build before coming to the table, and how much did the players build before coming to the table, and what then kind of happened at the table?
As far as I know, the players built very, very little. We had, on one of my streams, we had a day that devolved into coming up with all those acronyms, coming up with character names, and you saw the document.
Oh, I did.
It's
great.
So we ended up having a stream, and that, having the players choose organizations from that list, actually built a decent amount of the world, just kind of automatically. I decided that Groove was an organization that worked with other individual organizations to put together elite teams, and that would be why everybody could be from the individual organizations. and still working together on this particular project. So that built a lot of it, and that stream of mine built a lot of it. I mean, such as there is. Otherwise, it's like 1965-ish.
Richard B. Hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
What does he go by? Does he go by Richard?
Et cetera, et cetera. It was an awesome organization. I agree, yeah.
So, you would say in terms of building, it was pretty lightweight.
Yeah.
What's my next question? Oh goodness. I had a train of thought, and then I looked at chat, and you distracted me again, which is very normal. Thank you, chat. So you came in. You would say that probably the majority of that session was fairly improvised in terms of actual storytelling.
Yeah.
What do you think helped you the most with that in that first session?
Having stuff in front of me, basically the aids, having the reference sheets and things like that, knowing that, like, yeah, having that stuff in front of me was the number one thing that was better for that session than in the second one. But I couldn't find all that stuff before our session, and it made me very upset because I felt even less prepared.
So if you were going to kind of give yourself from that first session something that went well, what would you say went well? And something that you would do differently, or were hoping to do differently, if you were running another session?
I felt wildly underprepared for the last session, or for the first session, and had hoped to find more time to prepare for the next one, and had even less time. So, yeah that didn't work out so well.
So preparing is still something we're gonna do differently. What is something that went well?
I think that it was still a really entertaining time. People really seemed to enjoy it, so I think that I did at least a halfway decent job of rolling with everything. You gave yourself
the most half-assed compliment I have ever heard.
Well, I don't know. I haven't gotten any feedback from you guys aside from in that moment.
This doesn't have to be about feedback. This is about what you think
I feel like I did a relatively decent job of improvise, but the reason that I can't be like, I did a great job, is because I am sitting here talking with an accomplished improviser. An improv performer, and most of my cast are all. So I have you all to compare to, and I'm just like, I don't know how much they prepped beforehand. I'm just terrible at this. This is fine. It's fine.
Okay,
it's all
we're
fine.
going to be coming back to this question because you're going to need to give yourself a positive about the most recent session as well. And bear in mind, the positive it can be anything. It is something that you think, and this is for you to know, I'm going to be asking you those same two questions about the second episode of Spikadelic. Something that you think went well in that session that you were responsible for. You're going to have time to think about it. And something you would do differently. You think about those. Okay? We're going to come back to them. Teacher point. So, flashing forward to the second episode. That one you would probably say was more hurriedly put together, and you even had less time to prepare. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you were, she's disappeared, and I'm trying to ask her questions. Oh, she's getting a water bottle. There we go.
I'm dying.
There were tears. No, that's okay. So when you
there were tears, people were laughing.
I assume that is why, and not because you were all crying. So you approached me and asked if I wanted to be a player in Spikadelic, and having known some of the context, I had your basic pitch already, and that I thought was a wonderful idea, and I was very excited to participate in it. And obviously, AJ and Lizzie and Drunkly all came back for that for the second episode. When you say you came and you felt less prepared, where was the area that you think you had the least preparation for the second episode? Because you had, if we look at your first episode, you came with some information about the world and kind of some story beats. Where do you think your preparation was missing the most?
I also had more recent familiarity with the spreadsheet, with all of the acronyms, things like that. It was mostly those prep materials that I didn't have the second time around was what really, really hurt. And I do feel like I had the overall plot line a bit better fleshed out. It was in, like, the last few moments before the stream that I got as much as I did. And even that, like, half the second bit, I was talking with you guys about at break where we were going to go from there a little. So I definitely feel I had things a little bit better fleshed out in the path that I wanted everyone to take in the first one.
Okay. So you have both of those pieces in terms of you didn't have the notes. I would also say from a player perspective, we were sitting down without characters, for better or for worse, because you've already said, like, the agency was not the system that you wanted to use.
Yeah.
So essentially what we did was freeform storytelling where we occasionally rolled dice.
Yeah.
With that in mind, what's something that you might do differently if you were setting up for characters? Presuming you had infinite time or more time, what would have been your ideal setup in terms of character?
We definitely would have used a system, and like an actual RPG system would be nice. Yeah, that's the number one thing that I wanted. If I had more time to prep, I would find a good system for it, or I would make a good system for it. And I don't mean from scratch. I mean, I would pull it out of Star Trek Adventures, or I would pull it out of Dungeons and Dragons, or I would pull it from somewhere else, and we would actually have a system to work with. I think
what would you be inclined to do right now?
What do you mean?
If we were going to do a third episode of Spikadelic that you had enough time to prep for, what sort of system would you gravitate towards? What would you look for?
Off the top of my head, I'm trying to think of how to phrase this. I really like the Buffy system for specific reasons, and there are elements of that I see in Star Trek Adventures as I'm going through that. So I think that I would want to better familiarize myself with Star Trek Adventures, because I'm doing that anyway, and pull the elements of that out of it. So it would basically be to me, for this show, a lot of it revolves around the character's actual stats, and you all feeling like there is a thing that you were good at, and some other things that you can do as well, and being able to use those in the moment. So it's a matter of reskinning, for example, Star Trek Adventures to work with 1965 spies. And I feel like I got derailed from answering your question.
No, this is my question, which is what sort of systems, what type of things are you looking for? You mentioned you like sort of specific parts of the Buffy system, for example, which,
yes,
for those who don't know, is literally the official role-playing game of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah.
I think I already know the answer to this question, but what is the things that you really like about that system?
Drama points.
What are those?
Well, and Star Trek Adventures has a similar mechanic called momentum. So what I like about both of these RPGs is that, and to be fair, the Buffy system is not very good. It isn't. But, like Star Trek Adventures, it is designed to do something very specific. It's designed to recreate that episodic feel, which works really well for a Twitch RPG. We've seen it in Layla the Vampire Slayer. We've seen it in Shield of Tomorrow and Geek and Sundry. Layla being on roll for it. And I'm sure there are other examples that I'm not thinking of off the top of my head. But what it does is, when I guested on Layla, you were still doing it such that you could spend a drama point to add 10 to your roll after you had made the roll. And to me, that allowed you to roll, to take your chance, and then be like, oh no, I failed, but I'm realizing how important that was to me. I am going to spend this drama point to make it, to verify that importance, to say, I want this story beat to be mine, and this is how I want it to be told. as a success. Momentum can be used in similar ways, and so it's very different, and I'm still learning about it, but it can be used in very similar ways, where you can say, I am going to take the momentum that we as a crew have pulled together as we're defeating these adversities, and use it to make this story point a success. And I really like that narrative element. Mm-hmm. And I think that also helps tell a better story.
Mm-hmm. I think two things that come to mind when you say this. One, three things. One, I agree. I also like the power that those sorts of systems have, especially in Twitch, to give some narrative control to the players, where they say, no, this is going to happen because it is important to me and my character that it happens. And that's something that I think is really powerful tool, especially to push away from the trend of the GM as the person who has all of the control and all of the power.
Yep. Sorry, to tie on to that, I am not a big fan of GM-less systems in general, but I love that. Mm-hmm. I love that sharing of agency, that sharing of narrative development. So, sorry, continue.
No, and related to that is, I think it also really fits. Like, it tells me one of the things you're also really thinking about is, like, the type of story that you tell specifically with a spy adventure is very much the type of story of, I happen to have the correct device at the right moment to do the thing that no one would ever have thought I would need to do. Yeah. It's the MacGyver moment. It's the sudden, like, the oh, I brought this earlier.
That is one of the few things that we kept from the agency, is you could choose abilities, and one of the abilities was basically having pre-prepared, having that one device that you happen to need in that moment. And to me, that's quintessential spy movies. That's quintessential, like, Get Smart, having just that right device, or sometimes the wrong one, but using it in the right way. So I made sure that all players had that when we were playing.
So I'm going to give you a positive right now. As a GM and as a storyteller, one of the things that you strike me as very aware of is the type of material that you're trying to, not necessarily emulate, but basing your stories off of. So you saying that one of the things that helped you with the first story is that you were more familiar with the material. When I hear you talking about running a Star Trek show, one of the things that you're very excited and enthusiastic about doing is rewatching Star Trek and wanting to recreate the feel of the type of show that you are emulating or basing this off of. And that's something that's really cool to see, because that not only helps tell a good story, but also shows that you respect the material that you're interested and excited about. The pocket rocket was fucking hilarious.
That was a really great compliment. Thank you.
You're very welcome. I'm like, this is as much dissecting and debriefing what happened in Spikadelic, but also I want to point out things that you're already doing well, and then what we're going to work on for future things.
Yeah. AKA things I did poorly.
No, not necessarily. I actually do strongly mean that. Like, not necessarily. Sometimes they're just things that are fine. Like, they weren't bad. They just weren't, like, as good as they could be.
Yeah.
And that is how I feel about feedback. I also will occasionally do what I like to refer to as the shit sandwich, which is you layer a terrible thing between two good things.
Hey, Cal.
So, yeah, I think that shows really a solid knowledge and a desire to improve your knowledge of the material that you're working from. And that's an area that I'm not particularly strong in as a GM, because I'm like, I don't need to rewatch this. Works for me, but it's not like that. Knowing that about yourself is also really good. So you know if you're doing these things, you want to familiarize for your own comfort with the content. The last piece is in thinking about systems. One of there's a ton of suggestions of ones that might be interesting to look at for the next time you're going to run an episode of Spikadelic. Fate is one that Trooper brought up in chat, because it also comes with those kind of fate points, those ways of influencing dice rolls.
I actually picked up Blades in the Dark for this, but I loaned it to someone.
Oh no, I have AJ's copy.
I don't remember who I loaned it
to. It wasn't me. I thought it was me, because I have someone else's copy.
Yeah, it was AJ's. Like Jamie or Marcus or
I think it was Marcus.
I think it was Marcus.
Yeah.
Yeah. But regardless, so we definitely couldn't use that because I didn't have it, and it would have taken too long for me to learn a new system. Because that's not something that I'm great about either, is learning new systems can be a bit difficult for me.
Fate Accelerated might be another one. Like, and I say these as ones that we as a studio may also want to look at, because they would be good like tools to have in our back pocket. Because like simple or flexible systems like Fate can be like, oh, I have an idea for something what I want to run, and if everyone's familiar with it, then it can be much more easily picked up and played if people are utilizing. You're welcome, Iffy.
I'm generally pretty good about taking a compliment, but maybe not this week. Where I'm just gonna...
It's okay, it'll be over eventually. Time will continue moving forward.
Thank goodness. Oh. I need to complain to you about my dress later.
Oh no, the last tweet I saw said it was going well.
It's later.
Okay, I know.
It could be worse.
Okay.
There's an issue that I need to fix.
Okay.
But otherwise
we'll debrief the dress too.
It's going reasonably well.
So that's the system. That was one piece that we kind of came to the table not really ready for. I think given that, I would say that as a player, I felt pretty comfortable that actually by the end of it, I was like, okay, this is what Anna's expecting. Like, I know what to do. I would also say from a player end, one of the things you did really well, and this is really good for players that are new to a system, is being explicit about what you wanted me to roll. You would ask the question like, what's your blah, 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 and then, okay, roll this. And that's something that I utilize as a GM, especially with new players or players that might be unfamiliar with the system. I will say, do this, because it takes some of the burden of having to fumble with a character sheet or umming and ahhing as a player. So that was one thing that, especially because we were doing this very improvised dice system, you took ownership of really well. And that took that burden off of me as a player.
Cool. I felt like because none of us really had enough time to prep that I had to very specifically be like, I need you to roll me this, I need you to roll me that. That felt very important to me, so...
And I would say, as a GM, I have a certain expectation of my players to know a system. And that varies hugely based on how many times I think they're going to play it. Like, is this a one-shot or is this a campaign? Is this our first session? Is this our 7th session? How complicated is the system and things like that. And like playing Shadowrun, one of the things that I asked my players for at the beginning was, please learn the rules for your character's skills. Because there are so many rules, I cannot know them all. And Dan, like, stepped up and did an amazing job of knowing the rules for Magic. He still knows the rules for Shadowrun Magic better than I do. Because he took that and said, okay, I will learn them. And then he would be like, I am doing this, and here are all the things you need to know. And I said, okay, I trust you. So, like, players knowing the rules for their skills can be really helpful, but a lot of it depends on the system. And I think going forward for you did a great job with the one-shot, and one of the things we can talk about is how to help your players understand the rules when you get into a campaign. Because after a while in a campaign, it gets pretty exhausting, and you don't want to constantly tell them what to roll. But how do you scaffold that learning in a setting where you're going to potentially come in a lot more familiar than the players are?
Yeah.
So that's something that we'll touch on, because there's a lot of different techniques, and that gets into the teaching then. Improvise a system where the players oh, that's just more of a commentary question. Okay. So I think that covers system stuff related to Spikadelic. From the prep side, you lost the notes. You couldn't find them. Like, I was here. There was panic. I was like, I don't know how to help. Like, can I make notes for you?
They've got to be at home somewhere. But
beyond the obvious of have the notes that I had last time. Say that it happened. What was something that you were hoping to be able to prep differently from the first time to the second time that you were running?
I feel like somehow Spikadelic lends itself really, really well to, believe it or not, Rails. and nobody is going to actually believe this, but it's a fairly simple thing to be like, no, the bad guys are over here. The bad guys are always one step ahead of you, and you are always chasing after them. How you get there is up to you, but that's where the bad guys are. That's what the bad guys are doing. Go get them. Like, because it's this constant chase. And I don't think that I'll be able to keep it as a constant chase for every single episode. I would have liked to have those rails laid out a bit better. I didn't know, in both episodes, I didn't have all of the start, middle, and end. I had start and kind of part of middle, and none of the rest. And in the most recent one, I had start.
Using the most recent one as an example, you don't need to apologize. This is what happened. You were able to plan the beginning, but shit happens. You didn't plan a middle. You didn't plan an end. Yeah. So if you think about, like, okay, you had the start and your setup was the bad guys have frozen all of our land monuments in ice and you need to get a heat ray, which I was like, why can't we just use an oven? And you're like, oh, it's like a gun in an oven, and then it became a McGovern, which was a beautiful improv synergy. Yeah. And you had a solution for the problem that we needed to achieve. What do you think you would try and do? Like, what would have been your middle beat? Because you had kind of up to, we go to the bakery where this device is located. If you'd had more time now, like, what's something that you would have done next?
I actually didn't even have that much. That was improvised too.
So you had the setup. You need this device. Like, if you were going to redo the episode, if you were going to set up those rails, what? Let's kind of spitball some of this. What do you think would have been next?
So going to the bakery and then finding out that, I don't, honestly, I still don't know. The chase and then finding out that the item was back at the bakery all along, or that they were a decoy, I think was actually a great idea on the fly, and I love that, so I definitely would have wanted to go to that. You would return to the bakery, and then you would find evidence that, like, some clue that would lead you to perhaps a hideaway. I can't tell you too much more because we're going to do that episode. Yeah. And in theory, you might be in it. So, but what I will say is,
I'm sorry.
Something that I would really like to do is, both episodes so far have all been about that chase. I would like to do something that's a little bit more about infiltration and getting into that enemy base, navigating that enemy base, and having some sort of standoff with a bigger villain. I think that is the direction I would like to take it, and I don't have any idea what that looks like yet. And historically speaking, that's okay. But I need to figure out some portion of the start, and then at least be able to play off of everybody playing off of that. I need at least we got to figure out how to get it in there. We've got to make sure that, like, you find the right entrance.
I mean, you've also got to get in and then get out. And in case we forgot anything, we might need to get in again. And then
That's
get
true.
out.
That's true.
Yeah.
Similar to what happened at the bakery. Yeah, you went in. You
anyway. You gotta prepare it.
Do we get a chaos leader? No, they're grandmas.
Grandma. So I would say, that sounds. I think psychedelic is one that is generally, I think, falls into you can kind of plan by problems, especially because one of the things that I felt like you encouraged a lot as a storyteller is us finding solutions to the problems. Like, they are getting away. How do you catch up to them? How do you stop them? Was what felt like...
Sorry, I just got an email notification for a donation, but I think that might have been the earlier Sorry.
It's all good.
Because it's not showing up. So.
That's fair.
Yeah, I think that was the earlier one. Sorry. I just wanted to make sure that we didn't miss saying thank you. So. Sorry. Go ahead.
So one of the things that it strikes me as, like, you seem to promote your players having, especially in this one, very creative solutions to the problems that you put in front of them. Like, it felt very much like, here is a problem. Here is a new problem as a result of the previous problem / your attempted solution. And so I think approaching something like an infiltration can also be done in the same sort of way. And I would probably go by, like, here's where you're infiltrating, and then here's some facts about it, like, this is going to get in your way, so will this, so will this, so will this. This could help you, this might help you, this might help you. And then that's kind of like the first beat, and then it's like, when you get inside, who do you find, what do you look for? And maybe that's your villain, maybe that's a specific room or the device. And then those are kind of your beats. I would say coming in without an end is actually not as bad as you think. I often come in without a defined end beyond, like, they make it back to the ship, maybe? But as a player, I think there's a comfort in knowing that you have an idea of where it's going, but if I take it somewhere else, or if my actions have some specific consequence, you will roll that into whatever the outcome is. And so I think that's something that, like, my advice to you is don't panic about not having a defined end. It's okay to kind of leave it up in the air and have some possibilities for what could happen based on what players do.
So Kel over on Mixer asks, what game are we talking about specifically? Lauren was a player for me on an episode of Spikadelic, which we did during the fundraiser this past Saturday. And Spikadelic, for anybody that is just joining us and doesn't realize, Spikadelic was a 1965 super spy romp.
For example, I played a character called Cassandra Straight. Her friends call her Cass. And I enjoyed that I got to, more than once, make my terrible planned joke, which was every time someone referred to me as Miss Straight, I would respond saying, no, not really. I was like, this name is perfect. I get to make all the worst jokes.
It's true. It's true. So, but it was a lot of fun, and we're just kind of like going over this show behind the screens is about Lauren teaching me to be a better GM and giving tips overall and having an overall GMing roundtable. So, there you go. There you go.
I know.
I'm so surprised.
So surprised.
Another knife girl.
I was like, oh, I don't want to, but I love the name too much to not do it.
Oh, dear.
So, apparently I have a thing. I have a theme. But one, I recommend go back and watch it. It was a delightful show. You can find it on the VODs from
the fundraiser.
On
Saturday.
You might need to scrub through. I think eventually it'll go up as its own video on YouTube, but
That's
probably
the plan. Yeah, we'll
not
put
for
it
a little
on,
while.
We'll put it on YouTube as soon as Marcus or I have time. We're both, like, I'm incredibly busy right now, and Marcus is dealing with some stuff as well, as he always is. It's poor Marcus. Sorry. We can actually slide that over. Here, let me. No. See what I'm gonna do? Is swap it with this, because then we can do this.
Ah, that's smart. We're moving things on the screen.
Sorry, having another chat up kind of just confuses things a little. So, and then we'll shrink this a little, and that'll be good.
Yeah. So
now
yes,
we'll see if...
the goal of Behind the Screens today, I'm specifically debriefing Spikadelic because it was an experience where I got to be a player in one of Anna's shows.
Yeah.
So I think it's a really good opportunity to talk about some of what your process looked like, where we might do things differently, where things went well, what my perspective as a player was, and just kind of an experience that is recent and fresh in our minds. But a lot of what we talk about here, if you are new and joining us, is just general tips and suggestions on how to run tabletop RPGs. So how do you, what does that look like? What are some of the techniques and strategies?
Yeah.
I'm going to do a little bit more. We're going to talk a little bit more about Spikadelics, and then probably around when we're done with that, we'll just kind of open it up to questions that you guys have. I want to get into some of the things that you did a lot of in Spikadelic and what that can look like. She made, important question I have to answer, bacon and board. She made cookies. I thought they were very tasty, and I was incredibly disappointed in them.
I mean, this is the cookie, keep in mind, this is the cookie dough recipe I've been working on for 25 years.
Fair.
Literally been over the course of 25 years improving this cookie dough recipe, and this is just not up to par.
Do you know what happened?
I was trying to improve it, and usually I do the put everything into a bowl, mix it, and then we're good method, and I tried to get a little fancier with it to see if I could make them a little bit like fluffier, and it did the opposite, and it just made them all melt and end up flat. So the flavor is still okay, but it's not quite right there either. So I don't know if I didn't put enough of something in there or too much of something, but I've gone over it so many times. I don't know.
Next time,
So,
I'll look forward to more cookies. Also, yes, Carla, I am 100% aware she does have an impossibly high standard for herself.
But this is specifically one of those things that I have very high standards for. Intentionally very high. They're great. They're homemade cookies. Homemade cookies are good cookies compared to what most people eat for cookies. But they're nowhere near the level that has people going, oh my goodness, these are the best cookies, which is the reaction I normally get from them. It's fine. Anyway.
Another time. But yes, these are the cookies. I have had my allotted one. I might get a second one later, but I
do get another one later. Just saying.
I'm going to make sure everyone else gets a cookie that wants a cookie first, and then I will eat all of the remaining cookies. I know. Shucks, you're going to have to try again, and I'll have to compare.
Yeah, when I get back.
And it's the worst.
Unless it turns out that I'm allergic to chocolate, which might actually be the case.
That's awful.
Yeah.
That's real awful.
Yeah. But at least then I'll know.
That's true.
So, and my snickerdoodles are pretty good. That recipe is coming along really well. So
those are also really good cookies.
You know, yeah.
So much. So good. Okay, so
anyway.
Cookies are delicious. In conclusion, that's what we learned in today's stream.
Yes.
Cookies are great and I want more. Wait, where were we? What were we talking about? Spikadelic. That's right.
Agents of Groove.
I love it. It's delightful.
Somebody was asking if we're planning another episode. Planning on having another episode, yes, absolutely. We left it in such a way that we kind of need to wrap up that story, so very much so.
I'm excited about it. I think it's a show that really does lend itself to kind of one-shots, very periodic storytelling.
I'm allergic to peanut butter, too.
Curses!
I'm allergic to everything right now, so we'll see. Anyway,
at least you're not, like, allergic to your own teeth. That is a thing that can happen, apparently. I know someone whose cat, like, is allergic to their teeth and had to have them all removed. Apparently it's a thing that can happen.
Okay.
You can be, like, allergic to your own enamel.
So anyway.
At least you don't have that.
Yes, at least I am not allergic to myself as far as we know.
Yeah. Maybe you are. That could, unfortunately, answer all of your problems.
Yeah.
So, now that on that depressing note, I'm sorry. Spikadelic, a much not less depressing show.
Yes.
I actually wrote a list of some of the things that I wanted us to debrief, and then I forgot them. Okay, cool. We were talking about some of the prep stuff that you would do differently in terms of the story narrative. In addition to that, are there any like prep things about the world that you would have wanted to do? Obviously, the mechanical side of like having the cards and the things that you didn't have from the first to the second session. But is there anything you were hoping to flesh out that you didn't get the opportunity to?
I feel like for a start, we lost something by not having you actually go through craft services again, which is the organization that gives them all their gadgets.
Yeah,
that was a really fun moment in the first one. There were a bunch of different types of people that help you find gadgets for you, and like, yeah, there were more
Tell me
amusing
more.
acronyms. Well, I can't remember a
Okay.
lot of it, like, because a lot of it's tied up in the names of what they were. And how they were helping you and things like that. So I would have liked to have been able to touch on that a little bit more, and I would have liked to have better fleshed out the sub-organizations of Grandma, the nefarious organization that you're constantly up against. I would have liked to have been able to spend more time communicating with you so that you had an agency that you were a part of, rather than being kind of roped into Groove itself. We could have come up with an entire organization that specifically recruits people, from criminal elements and reforms them, that sort of a thing. And so I feel like there's a missed opportunity there.
Yeah.
So I think that's it. Getting a little bit more of a feel for the organizations that each of the cast members are a part of, and fleshing those out a little bit more, and fleshing out Groove a bit more, fleshing out Grandma a bit more. So it's not necessarily something new, it's just little bits more. I don't feel like we got any of that.
Adding some detail
really
to
at
what
all.
exists.
Yeah. And I feel like we made a lot of new jokes based on those things, but we didn't do it in a way that fleshed things out at all. So, yeah.
What are some ways...
Organization would have to be Knife.
Knife. Then I would literally be a knife girl. I mean,
Or
it's not...
add it to the document, guys, all right?
Please do, but come up with it. It's like...
You've got to come up with the acronym if you're going to put it in there.
What's a word beginning with K?
I don't know. Kinder.
I keep being like not or
Yeah.
like no. I'm like, I guess.
I mean,
those
it
are
doesn't
technically
have to
being
have
kids.
it doesn't have to start with a K. It could be.
That's true. Oh,
We need the document link. I'm sorry. I think it's somewhere in
conscription.
in the Discord. Danger Mouse. I think it's in there somewhere. So anyway. Yeah.
I like knife, N-I-F-E.
So
Not not international felons engagement. I don't know. But I do like international felons.
So anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, that was okay. What are ways? So one would be communicating with me as a new player that
Yep.
came in, kind of
Yep.
giving the opportunity to create an organization that would be part of Groove. What are some other ways you could think of that you might have incorporated those things? Or because you talk about like craft services is one kind of subset, like an important piece of Groove. What was maybe something else you could have introduced or like given us an opportunity to go visit or communicate with?
I don't know. Again, I keep thinking about the opportunities, the things that we did in the first episode that I wasn't able to do in the second one. In the first episode, everybody during their intro scenes, I would stop them at a certain point that felt narratively appropriate, and they would receive a calling card, which was a card that basically said, "We need you to report to Groove headquarters immediately, urgently," and so on. But I couldn't remember what calling card stood for, so we didn't have those. So for me, it's a lot of little stuff like that, where it's stuff that we did in the first that I kind of want to be iconic for the narrative, but without having them again. Obviously, they're not very iconic. So, and I think. Yeah, I don't know. Beyond that, a lot of it, when you also, because they're individual one shots, there isn't necessarily a lot of needing. I don't feel there's necessarily a lot of needing to flesh out Groove headquarters. Like, you don't need to see what the cafeteria is like necessarily. It doesn't add anything to the immediate narrative that we have to get through in that one episode. So, so to me, it's more important to flesh out the organizations a little bit with more tidbits of how they might interact. So maybe when you got to the bakery, there would have been a Fister team on location, having already secured it or something along those lines. Or when you got back there, maybe Fister had moved in or somebody else had moved in and had secured the location, and you could have conferred with them and then done whatever it was you needed to do. So things along those lines. Having something like that pre-prepared would be good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. I think one of the things that you could potentially build in, because generally the start of a session is the place where you have the most planned. I say that as someone who actually is starting so many options for tonight. It's Leviathan. So many options. I say that as someone who's starting with like a lot of question marks in her planning notes right now, but that's because we're mid-story, but especially in a one-shot. The beginning is normally the most planned, and I think that would be your place for adding in those opportunities. One of the ways you can also facilitate like communication with players when you need to give a lot of information is those kind of shared Google documents, like we have the Discord channels. So finding a way to be like, here's the beats, like you're gonna describe your character, then at some point there's gonna be a moment where I'm gonna interrupt with this thing. But some people were mentioning the idea of an NPC or something. I think that could be an interesting idea to explore, is having the point of contact at Groove be the same person every episode. Because that does add some continuity between them, but also is like a very spy thing, like they're your handler. Clandestine ne'er-do-wells instigating felonies everywhere. I like it, Fool's Rush. I've seen a bunch of them. I like all of them.
I would say something more along the lines of investigating, because this is an organization that's trying to get you to stop committing felonies. Yeah. And Misaki was asking why I don't have a binder with all the acronyms, or better yet, a Google Doc. There is a Google Doc, but I didn't have time to print it out and then get all of the note cards filled out, and the note cards were kind of important. I did print out that document, and I had it in front of me, but it's 3 pages long of relatively small type. That's only so helpful when you're trying to keep things moving really, really quickly. So the 3x5 cards that I had the first time were what I really needed, and I didn't have time to do it. DM found the Google Doc, so I'm sure that link will show up in chat momentarily. But there is a Google Doc for it. I just didn't have the cards that I needed.
So it's the issue is not necessarily that the information wasn't available for planning, is that the information, you didn't have the time to take the information that was available and convert it into something that you can use at the table.
And also reference the first episode to find out, to remember all of the information that was used in the first one and that we would need for the second one, things like that. So, yeah.
So one of the things that... One, in a long-term campaign, you can
keep it relatively clean.
Relatively.
Innuendo, not just porn.
Someone's going to come up with porn and an acronym for that.
Bonus points if it's prawn.
Yeah, I know, like PRON. Yeah. So one of the things that with ongoing campaigns, often it can be easier to kind of set yourself up quick reference sheets. That's normally one of my go-tos. Is that I like to have prepared material, and it's like obviously less stressful in an ongoing campaign because you're like, I'm going to put time into this because it'll be useful for a lot longer.
Yeah. And a lot of the work you can potentially, if it gets skipped over or gone around or whatever, you can use it. You can pull it in for something else later. Yeah.
I would also say that something that's important to note kind of from that is that often what you use at the table is different than what you use in planning and also in like storage of information. So like we have the benefit here of having some amazing people who keep track of our wiki. And the wiki has in it so much information that I can go reference as a GM. When you're playing a home game, that's not always going to be the case. You're going to have instances where you're going to need to keep track of things yourself in some sort of way. Google Docs, setting up your own home game
Sir
wiki.
Fist, please put that in the document.
Oh, Paro Organizational Readiness Network. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
It's a good one.
So there are, but that is information, like, I cannot effectively pull the wiki up when I'm sitting at the table running a game. And, like, maybe if I was a home game, I might do it, but even then,
Yeah.
we'd be like, excuse me, guys, let me Google something.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get back to the action. Like, that's not something you want to do. So there is going to be a difference between what you prep for the table and the way you keep track of and store information.
Yep. And it is worth noting that it's a very different experience. Once again, it is a very different experience creating a show or being on a show than a home game or being a part of a home game. And like, you know, do what makes you happy. But
and also, to an extent, though, they can kind of inform each other. So I think avoiding having to look stuff up as much as possible in your home game will help with flow, will help with comfort, will help things kind of move faster, feel more involved. And that's something that I think that's a useful tool to pull from show RPGs where we're like, well, we're not going to look up the rules now, and like just make a note of it and like look up the rules at the end of the session play. So that's kind of the world prep piece, the story prep piece.
All right, DM, I really don't want to lose that one. If you could add it, I'd appreciate it. or if somebody else would add that for Surfist, I would appreciate it. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
So that's kind of the planning piece. Some of the things we could have done differently. I'm gonna now give you some feedback from my player perspective. I've already talked about some of the things that I think you did well, but I want to again reiterate that as a player, one, I felt it was very approachable, not knowing a ton about the system or even the story. Even if you feel like you didn't give me a lot of information, I think as a player, I felt pretty comfortable to come in and participate in that story. I had enough of the feel and the tone and the themes that I was something I was able to do. I would also say that as a player, I really appreciated and I really enjoyed that you really did encourage creative solutions to problems and wanting to make dice rolls count for something and have some sort of effect on a narrative. I liked some of the moments that we had, like you roll and like you're unsuccessful and there's a consequence for it, or like, because I was like, I'm going to do this really dumb thing, and you're like, okay, and there is some sort of outcome as opposed to just you succeed or fail. There was one other thing.
There were definitely times where I was hoping that somebody would fail their roll because I was like, oh, I have such a great thing that I can do with that. No, darn. Succeeded. All right, yeah, you punched them.
Fine.
Yeah.
And those are things. I also think that you created a very consistent feel at the table. That there was something that, like, things didn't feel out of place when we came up with wacky ideas or different devices. Like, you didn't just yes and for the sake of yes anding. You yes-anded and yes-butted and no-butted in the context that made sense for the world that we were collaboratively creating. So I think I would encourage you to walk away with feeling like you've got a solid grasp on creating worlds and setting materials and running with a theme at a table.
And thank you, DM, for adding that.
From the player side, I would say that there was definitely a point where I could see the fear in your eye of knowing you ran out of things to do.
Yeah.
I think we handled it fine, and I would say from a performance perspective, I think it went well because we had a discussion during the break. But I definitely, like, as a player, I was like, Anna doesn't know what's coming next.
Yeah.
And that was something that I think there's nothing inherently wrong, especially in a show, of talking during a break about some ideas.
Yeah.
But working on ways you can help yourself feel comfortable with what's coming next. And then the one other piece is describing where things are. Was especially during the car chase, I think I was never 100% sure like what direction cars were facing. And as a player, I tend to just be like, okay, whatever, I'm now here, which is not where I thought I was. But working on ways that we can all verbally re-describe what a scene looks like And I also think that that's a pretty, like, that is part of the collaborative process, but that is something that's really easy to forget to do when you're not using maps. And I think that a lot of players, I included, I came from using maps very heavily, that I never really learned the skill of describing what a scene looks like until I had to do improv, where we did scene painting in a show, and it was like, and here's a waterfall, and you need to remember that the waterfall's there, or suddenly you're in it.
And I feel like that is incredibly important, in particular with Twitch shows, is having those narrative elements where you're actually describing what the room looks like and things like that. And I think that part of my, part of the reason I didn't do more of that is because I was afraid it would take too long, which is silly because it's kind of important. So, but it's absolutely something I totally agree with you on.
So that is my feedback to you. There were a lot of things. As a player, I had an incredibly fun time.
That's it?
I mean, I've given you 2 concrete things to work on, and that's all I want to do.
What was the other one?
Planning narrative beats, like what should those look like, and scene painting, like setting the scene visually and verbally.
I completely agree.
And I think scene painting and setting a scene is something that I still struggle with. And it's another one of those skills that I think comes from doing streamed RPGs that can really benefit home games, especially if you're making a transition from using maps to not using maps, or you're doing anything where there's a lot of action happening quickly. Like in some shows or some games, it's not going to be as relevant. Character painting, that's another good one. But the balance of verbally describing things so that everybody's mental picture is actually a picture that we can all share.
And I think, especially something that's on my mind lately, I really want to start getting our shows into podcast form. And that is something that is incredibly important with podcasts. You have to be able to be describing things and not be being like, well, it kind of is like this. If you're trying to describe a bent curve, like, you need to be able to describe it with your words, not with your hands, and not point to something and not show, like,
I kind of want to put together, we'll probably do a session that I'll actually, of this, that I'll, prepare some materials, and I'll be like, here's a picture. The audience doesn't get to see it. You're gonna have to describe it and you guys then have to say what you think it will I don't know, we'll do some activities that'll be some weird ass interactive shit of how would you describe this, and then I'll giving you constraints only using these 2 senses.
So basically we're going to play reverse Pictionary.
Yeah.
I actually I almost want that to be kind of a sub show thing that we occasionally do reverse on Pictionary. The channel for everyone.
So I'll put together, because I think scene painting, and I'm gonna write this one down.
That's bad news for you. Your scene painting homework could involve having to watch more Critical Role, because I think Mercer is really good at it. Krellin, it's a good thing that I have a really, really long time to do the next homework, because I'm not going to get to watch it tomorrow, and I'm definitely not watching it next week, because I'm getting married during Critical Role next week. I didn't plan that one very well.
No.
Actually, I think it'll be before
you could just live stream it from the reception.
But maybe, but I won't really be able to mod while I'm doing it.
That's fine. I'm just sorry, excuse me, guys.
Hi, Liz.
So scene painting and verbal descriptors. I also want to say there is, prefacing that, and we'll get to it more when we talk about it, there's no super wrong or right way of doing it. Some people are very poetic and flowery. I am not. Unless I have pre-prepared it, I am much more of it feels gross. There's sticky sliminess, and everyone's going woo. I'm a very I like onomatopoeia. I like weird squelching noises. That's one of my favorites. That's what oozes sound like. And so there's no. It's both to tell a story, but it is also a form of communication. information, and it is about making players, and in this case an audience, aware of what's going on. I rely a lot on hand gestures, for better or for worse. I'm really bad at lefts and rights, so I will almost never ever use lefts and rights to describe things. And like in space you run into like, well, there's no up and down, so but yeah, TV and movies, improv has some great tools and stuff that we can use, so we'll talk about that one at a separate time.
I'm just saying, you know, there can be like galactic up and down.
But then what if you turn it all around and then galactic? I mean, I guess you
it's
can
like
set
north
a
and
standard.
south,
That's
right?
fair. Yeah, that's true. You can set a standard based on.
Theoretically, and somebody I'm sure will
Tritium north.
correct me if I'm wrong, is do black holes have magnetic poles?
I have no idea.
Do they have gravitic axes? Things like that. And maybe they do. Maybe instead of magnetic, maybe it's a radiation pole. So then you look at the pole of the supermassive black hole at the center, and you figure out which way is up based on that, which is pretty arbitrary, but
it is a reference point. It's all about finding the reference point.
galactic north, exactly.
Tritium years.
Galactic north.
Oh, galactic north is where the rotation is anti-clockwise, and you look down on it. Same goes for suns and planets.
See, there you go.
Answer solved.
Galactic up.
So if your ship starts spinning around in a circle and starts rotating on an axis,
you know which way is up.
You know which way is up, but only when your ship is rotating on an axis. Good. Thank you for solving my problem. Where was I going? Oh, so that was my feedback to you. Now, are you ready?
Uh-oh.
For the questions that I asked you to think about, where you talk about, you have to tell yourself, and we can start with what you think, the negative one first and then the positive one. So what are the things, I guess we can split this into two. What are something you would do differently for another episode of Spikadelics? And based on running Spikadelics, what's something you will do differently for running a campaign?
I think for running a campaign, it'll be easier for me to take it slower.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be easier for me to be like, we have all the time in the world. I am in control of whether or not this show gets canceled. We have all the time in the world. So I think that'll be a little bit easier, just by nature. And then I think, what was the other one?
What would you do differently for an episode of Spikadelic? I've been corrected. There's no S.
Yes, there's no S on the end.
I'm sorry, but in England it's Spikadelics.
Only if
like
it's
maths.
plural.
Well, it's maths.
No, it's psychedelic. We just swapped the two letters.
Wait, what?
Please tell me you knew that.
Yes.
Okay.
I figured that part out.
So psychedelics would be drugs that are... Okay, anyway.
Yeah, so it should be Spikadelics, is what I'm hearing.
No, because it's singular.
Continue. It's fine.
I think
You
I
can call
will
my show
prepare
Leviathans.
better... Yeah, Leviathans. How's Leviathans prep work going, Lauren?
It's great.
So, I think the other thing will be a bit better because it's already on my mind. We already know that there's going to be another episode of Spikadelic.
Thanks. Leviathans, distant stars. Yes.
Distant Star. No.
Leviathans, distant star.
Yeah, just
I
the
can see
one.
that.
Just the one. It's north. So I can already start planning it out a little bit in my head. I already know who the characters are going to be. I already know what the basic plot line is, so I can kind of potentially start getting the basic framework. Because I feel like, especially for Spikadelic, I don't need it fully fleshed out. I don't need a full dungeon for you to crawl or anything like that. I just need the basic beets, and then that leaves room for the McOvens. And things like that. So, but I can get started on that basic framework, and I mean, the other thing, having those note cards is, like, I just need to get my apartment and the studio organized, which is something I'm constantly working on, and will be much easier after the wedding. So, I think those are the main things, is, like, start the prep work for it now. I know I'm going to be doing it, and I just need to still, I think once I get back from the wedding, I will put my hands on those cards and find those notes, and then then I know I'll put that file somewhere that I know is filed instead of in a random box, and then I can add to it, like I can add the knife organization that you heard from or whatever, and we can retroactively.
A small part of me wants to make them called moil, and that's mostly just so I can keep running with the joke of castration. But not quite. Like, moils don't do that, but it's like...
So top of Anna's list is finish getting married. Yeah.
Step 1, finish getting married. Step 2, Step 3, profit?
No, we're a non-profit.
Step 3, non-profit.
Yeah, non-profit.
You missed Cassie Straight's a Cass Straight's joke name. Castrate. Cass Straight. I'm just gonna keep saying it. You missed the joke and you're fired. I'm disappointed in you, Liam. I'm disappointed. That's a lie. I'm not disappointed. Now, you need to tell me something that you think you did well on Spikadelic.
I do feel like I did relatively well I do feel that I did well rolling with all of you. I'll leave it at that. I do feel like I did a good job of rolling with the punches that you all threw and trying to keep it moving into one direction. And there was definitely that moment where I'm like, I got nothing else. I have no idea where we're going with this. I think now is a good time for a break.
I would 100% agree that you did a great job going with what we gave you and making it feel like part of an ongoing story. Thank you. You said something nice about yourself! Yes, I win!
I'm not Marcus.
Okay, well, close enough. Alright. I think, rather than talking too much about generating things on the fly, we can save that for a whole nother time. Are there, like, questions, comments, things you guys want to say related to Spikadelic, related to other shows here? We've got, like, 20 minutes
Star
left.
Trek idea.
And we'll kind of open it up to just general chit-chat for the last 20 minutes.
I have, while we wait for
things
people
you
to
wanna
get
talk about.
something into chat, I have so many people that are so enthused about potentially being on the Star Trek show
Good.
that I don't know what to do about it.
Ooh.
Because some of the people are like, oh, Saturday would be perfect for me, and some of them are like, Saturday sucks, and then there are other people that I haven't talked to yet that I know will be super excited about it that I know can't do weekends, and so I'm like, okay.
Is Spikadelic the best show ever or the funniest show ever? It is the innuendoiest show that we have on this channel, for sure.
Yeah. I would possibly say the most innuendoist at all.
Probably.
Like, maybe not even just on Twitch, but at all. It's good there.
I also appreciate Surface. Like, my hair is purple. I promise you. It's purple, right?
Yeah. There's a fair amount of blue in it today, but it is purple.
It's like a on the bluer end of the purple spectrum, but I took like half purple dye and half pink dye and mixed them together.
It is pretty close to it's Twitch purple but darker, with a little bit more blue, but not a lot. Are you on a 5-year mission for a Star Trek show? No. How about having a rotating cast of cadets of the week, Anna? No, I don't have time to figure out the logistics for that. That would be a nightmare. When we ran weekly affirmations, the worst part of it was getting new people every single week. That was no. That's a full-time job right there. Absolutely, that is a full-time job.
Guest
scheduling
spots
that out.
when people can't show up. That's always good.
Would
but
be
as
phenomenal.
someone who ran an entire season of a show where I had to constantly bring in a new person like every 3 weeks, like it was not fun.
Yeah.
I think the season 2 of Leviathan wasn't great. Was not nearly as good as season 1 because of that.
And there were people that complained about it too. Unfortunately,
it was not my preference.
Somewhat understandably, yeah. Yep. But we had a lot of stuff going on at the beginning of the season, so there was only so much time. I couldn't help you find somebody that could be there for the whole time, and and I want to say that that's on me, except that it's understandable that I couldn't help you with that because we, were figuring out everything.
I like how I liked all of the characters that got introduced. Like there was no there's no
absolutely.
part of me that's upset by it, but I think that it meant that the ongoing narrative, the depth of the player characters we did have, could never be explored as much because no one was going to be there for that long. You can only get through so much depth of a character in 3 weeks. And I am grateful for all of the people who came and were on that show for those times, but it did, I think, overall reduce some of the emotional impact that we could have in that season, and that wasn't something that I wanted to continue doing. I think I get what Krellin's more talking about is having a larger cast that then rotates, so it's not necessarily, it's like a cast of 7 and not everyone's there. Something that I find both interesting conceptually, but I'm always a little hesitant to do, because I think, again, you run into stories can be a lot slower in an RPG than they are in a television show. And television shows, I think, are also based a lot more around having a small number of primary protagonists and then a larger supporting cast. And that, I think, is something that doesn't work quite as well in an RPG because you want everybody to be equal at the table. And so you could potentially do it with a Starship sort of setup where you're you have the captain and this, and the away team is not going to be everybody who's on the show. So they go down to the planet and they're the only people you have for those few weeks, but thus the idea, conceptually it could be kind of cool to have a bigger cast that's not always the same, but I'm always a little hesitant for how would you actually run that, and especially when things don't always wrap when you think they're going to wrap, and you'd be so you were supposed to come back on the show next week, but actually you're going to be there in 2 weeks because we're going a lot longer.
And then how many times does that happen where you don't realize that, you can't introduce somebody until the end of the show, so they're sitting there the whole time, and for us, where our budget is so tight, we can't afford, I'm not going to have somebody sit on the couch having been told that we need them and then send them home having been on for 5 minutes. I'm still going to pay them.
Yeah.
Or send them home not having been on. I'm still going to pay them because it's the right thing to do. And we can't do that either. But I mean, in general, it's still an issue. Just being hi, I'd like you to come sit on our couch for an episode.
Yeah, and I preface that Dan and I actually talked about it, and I was very upfront. I was Dan, here are the 2 ideas that we've talked about. This is your one idea. This is your other idea. In idea 2, if you want to go with it, you will probably be on the couch until the break. It will probably take that long. And he was yes, I am okay with this. And I'm cool, as long as we're all in agreement, then that's fine, and I don't mind doing it for a one-off. And this is also Dan, who was I'm going to hide under the table for what he says was 10 minutes, and I'm Dan, I'm pretty sure it was 30, because we had to get through introductions and then a bunch of other character stuff before you showed up. For around 20 to 30 minutes, he hid under a table.
Yep.
Oh shit, I left Dan's shirt. Fuck, I have to go get it. It's fine.
It'll give me time to make popcorn.
Perfect. It's not I'm that far away. So the idea of having multiple players, I have done it in a home game, which if you have a flexible enough storytelling game, especially where you wrap a dungeon each week, it worked pretty well. But it still was stressful whenever I was trying to plan anything that was character specific because I didn't know who was going to be there.
Yep.
Also, Surface, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed Right Click. It was a lot of fun.
And
Ridiculous humans.
I also think that it would lend itself. I think I love the idea of having guests, but generally I kind of feel like it's better when the majority of the cast stays steady. So, you know, if we had a 4-person cast, having a 5th person guest for a few weeks, and then being back to the 4 people for several weeks more would be great. It's when you've only got 3 and you're constantly rotating the 4th person out that it's more of a problem. Yeah.
I think Pumpkin was asking about the crossover show, which I only heard about at the fundraiser. I'm on board.
It only was created during the fundraiser.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on board with this. Let's
I
figure
can't
this out.
handle the logistics of that
That's
even being
very
in the
fair.
background of my mind right now. So
Understand.
I know it's hilarious, but I'm gonna go and you can talk to them about it, and I will catch up later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
TBD, to be decided. And also why regarding
Because
Stan's
then we have to
outfit,
get Eric up here to do it. TBD crossover RPG. No?
regarding Dan's outfit from last week, why not?
Yeah.
It's Dan. He asked for it. I asked several times if he was sure, and he responded in all caps and said, "Yes, I will wear this every week." Dan Postlins, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, I would say rotating casts are generally not something that we're super interested in exploring because of the amount of work it goes into scheduling people. Like even for a show like Weekly Affirmations, like where they're changing systems up frequently, I think would even benefit from having a core group of players that are
to use
playing new systems.
more likely to potentially happen at some point. I have long wanted to do something like tabletop but live, partially because somebody told me that they didn't think it could be done, and I respectfully disagree. And I think that it would revolve around having a set group of people, having the game change, but the people be the same. And because then they know what jokes to play off of each other with, and to keep things more fast-paced and things like that. So even with shows like that, I think that's another great example of, like, no, it makes more sense to have a set group of people.
Thank you, Bildaris. I appreciate that compliment.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, Dan asked for it. It was a thing that happened that I made, and I constructed it, and I went, oh God, why have I made this? And I made it.
So I forgot to host the stream from my channel.
It's all good. It happens. Deep breaths.
It's fine. It's fine.
We got, is Dan okay? No, probably not. We have about 10 minutes before we're going to wrap up. Any other questions, comments? It can be about Spikadelic. It can be about other shows we're going to be doing here.
Like the Star Trek show.
Other question about the jamming. Someone asked for suggestions on like quick ways to scene paint and to set up scenes. I think that's probably going to be a lot more of an involved session. But my basic answer is use all your senses. And that's probably the easiest thing, because then you minimum will say like 5 things. Except maybe taste 4 things. Sometimes taste. So like you will, if you're like, great, I have to describe one of each thing of my senses, I will probably describe 5 things about this situation, and that's 5 more pieces of detail that the players didn't have before.
Yeah, I feel like now I'm thinking taste. How would you work taste in? And like in certain environments, that would be an amazing descriptor to be like, and it leaves this feeling in the back of your mouth, like the air is so thick and oppressive that you got this sort of cottony feeling in your mouth instantly on walking in, or something along those lines. It becomes very can become very, very
yeah,
descriptive.
like, you know, acrid, like like sometimes like taste and smell are very linked. So like sometimes you'll kind of describe it kind of as a combination, like it smells and tastes sort of sweet in the air. But I generally would say like 2 things for vision, 1 for sound, 1 for touch if it's relevant, and then 1 for like a taste and feel.
Yep. If you do a Star Trek show, can Lauren be Geordi? No.
Yeah, that would be weird.
Yeah.
I'm white. Like, let's be real. Like, I shouldn't be Geordi. We also got a donation.
Oh, we did?
We did.
We did! Yay!
Majority of audience rep donated $14.28. I love this show. Shucks, I love all the shows here. Thank you, majority of audience rep.
Thank you very, very much. I appreciate that. We all appreciate that.
Oh my god, I'll have to pull out. Oh, like I have like words for describing, like that's actual like worksheet tools that I have, because one of the things that like we have to teach kids in writing fiction particularly is how to be descriptive. And that actually was an activity that I did with my students. And now I'm like, I think I have a PowerPoint presentation for this somewhere on my computer.
Also, just to be clear, that if we do a Star Trek show, it's not going to be pre-existing stuff, partially because I think legally we can't do that. It's going to be in Starfleet Academy, not on a starship even. So,
no one will be anyone. Is essentially the way that works out. Yeah. No pre-existing characters.
Yeah.
GM list of weird descriptors to help prompt in the moment would be a smart resource. I might have to tailor it specifically to like RPGs, but it is just literally like lists of descriptive words and like ways to do descriptive activities. Oh god, I'm gonna be doing like a freaking PowerPoint presentation. Welcome to our Twitch presentation. Click, 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 click. Starfleet Academy Royale. That's for the crossover episode, Void Smoker. Also, I think I saw you were drawing Cass as a young Helen Mirren. Yes, please.
I'd love to see that PowerPoint presentation. Yeah.
I'll go see what's on my computer.
We're gonna need to get a smart board. Those are only a couple $1,000.
Yeah, they're super cheap and accessible.
Yeah.
You know what we can also is like a document camera. That would actually be really handy. Not that
document.
Document cameras, they're like an arm. It's basically like a webcam, but on an arm.
Yeah.
They're just more user-friendly for teachers. But they're basically webcams.
Yeah, I mean,
you can just get a webcam.
Yeah, I just need to get an arm for the webcam, and then we put it right here. And we've got
but
if
I do use a PowerPoint presentation, I can like send you a Google Doc link or something, and you can like actually put it on screen.
Yeah, but it would actually be easier to do the overhead cam because I can't change things easily from here. Like I would have to set up an entire menu in the Stream Deck for it, and that's just not worth it.
It's not worth it. What if I was running it from my computer? Could I do that?
Yes.
And then just like HDMI screen
yep.
cap.
As long as you've got HDMI. Yeah, we'd need a little bit of extra time to set it up, but it wouldn't be that big.
Not that I actually want to do a PowerPoint presentation on Twitch, but if I have one already to use, we might. So I was looking on my stream at one point at the 50K projector. It comes with a dog.
Yeah. I was there for that part of the stream, actually.
Good.
Or at least jokes about the dog, yeah.
I didn't actually clarify if it comes with a dog, but...
Because I remember you talking about that voice that you love doing. The overly pretentious one.
Ew, yes. I'm sorry. Does this come with a dog?
Yeah. And how it was related to the Dowager's voice and so on.
But it's not quite the Dowager's voice.
I was there for that. I lurk sometimes.
I do the same to you. It's okay. I was teaching Steph the variations and like what I like to think was my 3 voices, and it's like the spectrum from pretentious to old lady with the Dowagers in the middle.
Yep. Reasonable. Reasonable. Okay, any more questions?
No, the Cruella DeVille voice is more like, does it come with a dog? I want it. I need the puppies for a coat.
See, I would go more nasally. But
Yes, we can just pinch our nose. The Dowager is essentially a pretentious old lady. About how useless it is to learn PowerPoint when you already know how to impress. It was 2 pages long. I'm sorry, Osborne. I think now we're just talking about PowerPoint presentations, though.
Yeah, no, I think that's...
Hi, spooky lot.
So, we can outro a bit and talk about Leviathan tonight.
What?
Leviathan's...
No, sorry. Yeah, Leviathan's Distant Star. Our new RPG that we're running here.
Right.
It's just Leviathan Distant Stars, but we swapped our S's.
Yeah.
Yes, tonight, 7 p.m. Pacific time, so in 3 hours, we will be running episode 3 of this season's Leviathan Distant Stars. Conclusions might happen.
Deceptive Mirror is Distant Stars. That's the spin-off show that will happen after Distant Stars is done, which is the time of following Dan's character while he was a pirate.
Well, there's a small part of me that would love to do a spin-off of that. Like, if I kind of want to suggest that. Anyway, as their a non-canon 2-part episode during the 2 weeks that I'm gone, is just everyone playing with Bisquick Hines, Jeremiah Bisquick Hines.
Yeah.
And that would be just 2 episodes of him on a ship. So that'll be tonight at 7 p.m. Pacific time. It is a Stars Without Number based RPG. I love them both, Krellin, and how dare you suggest otherwise. We will be concluding, hopefully, Kika will no longer be captured, and they all make it out alive, maybe with some of the slaves. It's really hard to tell at this point. Dan's character has been injured a lot. And Kika's been captured and thrown into a slave pen. So, it's cool.
And during the break, we'll be giving away a tank top or a t-shirt. Mm-hmm. That would be a keyword giveaway that my mods might need to remind me to do. It's raining. No, this is the second time today I've been rated as I'm wrapping up.
Curses! Curse this NatPack wonderful raid. Hello.
Thank you, NatPack.
We are
so
signing
much for
off.
coming by. We're wrapping up, but we can keep talking about who we are and what we do. And thank you so much for that raid.
We are GeekSpaceTV. In fact, let me reintroduce us. Welcome to GeekSpaceTV, which you just hopped on into. We are a nonprofit broadcasting studio in the Seattle area with a mission to improve and promote diversity and inclusion within gaming and geek spaces. And we're going to be coming back in about 3 hours. So if any of you are still around, we will have a show tonight called Leviathan Distant Stars. It is a sci-fi sort of space opera themed RPG. We just concluded Behind the Screens, which is our show where we talk about how to run, and maybe eventually we'll talk about how to be a player in tabletop RPGs and how to do that better. Today we debriefed our one of the one-shots that Anna ran during our fundraiser. And Friday night we will be coming back with a second episode of Eat, Pray, Kill. It is a Powered by the Apocalypse hack called Broken Worlds, based on the Kill 6 Billion Demon comics. That pretty much everything?
But then next week is going to be a little bit wonky because both of us are going to be out of town. So we're only going to have Eat, Pray, Kill next week. We will only have Eat, Pray, Kill next week. And then the following week, we're getting another show, a new show in partnership with Brave Monday. And then we're gonna see how things go on whether or not we have a Wednesday show that week. I hate to leave everybody hanging, but right now I do not have the bandwidth to plan it, but I really want to have something during that spot. So
our goal is to fill both of the Leviathan slots while I am gone.
2 of the 3, because you're gone for 3. But the one that
content.
I'm back and you are gone.
Yes.
Yeah.
But stay tuned for those things. If you haven't, go ahead and hit that follow button. Also, make sure you turn notifications on so that you can get alerts on when we go live. You can also check out our Discord. That's a really great place to ask questions, get updates. We definitely post announcement updates over there. And lastly, also follow us on social media. Those are the other way to get...
Twitters. And Periscope. That's right. Tonight, tonight's episode of Leviathan's Distant Star. We gotta stop doing that or people are gonna think that's actually the name of it. Tonight's episode of Leviathan Distant Star will actually be the first full RPG show that we have broadcast in full 360 on Periscope.
It's really cool.
It is really cool. I expect most people will still want to watch the majority of the show on Twitch, but if you haven't seen 360 video, it is definitely something to check out. So follow us on the Twitters and make sure you're signed up for Periscope so you can check that out tonight. It'd be great.
It's really cool. You can always have like Twitch chat open if you want to like try out watching the 360, but you also want to be able to chat. Yeah,
if you really just want to stare at Dan's glorious fishnet shirt all night, then 360 view is the place to do that.
Yep.
It's not at all creepy.
No.
All right, so thank you so much, Nats, right, for that raid. Very, very much appreciated. And that's going to be it for the next couple hours. We'll be back in 3 hours for Leviathan Distant Stars.
Bye, everybody. Thank you for being here.
This button.